Hey guys, tonight we slip back into a week of soot, smoke, and endlessly creaking brooms. You're not here as a guest of honor or a lord at a feast. No, your new role is at the very bottom rung. A kitchen apprentice in a medieval household, armed with nothing fancier than a broom. Your bed is straw, your diet is scraps, and your lungs. Well, let's just say you probably won't survive this if you're expecting filtered air and scented candles. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first morning hits you with a chill. Stone floors, slick with last night's spilled broth. You clutch the broom, already heavy with soot from yesterday. Fires burned low through the night, leaving behind thick ash clumped in every grate. You drag the bristles across the hearthstones, each stroke raising faint gray clouds that cling to your sleeves and sting your eyes. Somewhere above, you can hear the master's boots on the stair. Thuds that remind you how closely your work will be judged. This was the real rhythm of great houses. Kitchens alive before dawn, because bread had to be ready by sunrise. Fact: most medieval kitchens kept at least one oven glowing 24 hours a day. Not only for food, but for warmth. And yet, it meant someone like you spent hours sweeping, hauling, dumping, until the floor looked vaguely less like a coal mine. Ash settles into your hair. You wipe your forehead, only to smear the soot further, creating patterns that would put a modern charcoal artist to shame. Historians still argue whether apprentices were considered true servants or merely helpers, but either way, you know your back aches just the same. You pause for a second, leaning on the broom, hearing a pot simmering gently somewhere in the back. That's where the real cooks work, skimming, chopping, shouting at each other. You're not invited there yet. Your kingdom is ash, your throne is a bucket, and your scepter? Well, that's the broom you keep swinging. There's a strange pride in it, though. Someone has to keep the ovens from choking with yesterday's smoke. Quirky tidbit. Some households even reused ash for scrubbing pots or whitening laundry, which makes you think, congratulations, you're not just sweeping dirt, you're producing medieval detergent. The bell tolls in the yard. Time keeps moving. Your broom scrapes forward. Your lungs take in that earthy, smoky smell, and you find a steady rhythm in the endless sweep. Somewhere between exhaustion and routine, your mind begins to drift toward the next chore waiting just outside the kitchen door. The second morning arrives before you've even convinced yourself the first one ended. You shuffle through the half-light of dawn. That broom still your constant companion. The stone floors biting against bare feet. A bell clangs in the yard, and you realize that while nobles might wake to lutes or soft prayers, you wake to the sound of someone shouting about spilled oats. You bend toward the hearth, already gray with yesterday's efforts, and begin again. The ashes cling to you more intimately than family. Each sweep of the broom feels like scratching a stubborn itch the house never lets go of. The fireplaces were stoked through the night so the ovens wouldn't cool. Now they spit out piles of tired cinders. You kneel, scoop, dump, and repeat, soot embedding in the cracks of your knuckles. Your nose itches, but if you wipe it, you only smear another streak across your cheek. You look a bit like a walking sketch someone abandoned halfway. A historical fact slips into your mind as you scrape. Many great halls of the Middle Ages weren't heated by little hearths like this, but by enormous open fires, flames big enough to roast whole oxen. The trickle-down effect? more smoke, more soot, more ash, meaning more mornings where apprentices like you scrubbed and coughed. You imagine the grand banquets, the laughter, the spilled wine. Yet all you inherit is the leftover crusts and the duty of making the floor less black than yesterday. You cough lightly as the haze of charcoal dust stings your throat. There's a bitter taste that sits stubbornly on your tongue, no matter how many gulps of well water you take. You wonder idly if this might shorten your life. Joke number 1. On the bright side, if you don't live long, at least you won't have to do this for decades. That's called medieval optimism. The cook storms past, muttering about bread rising too slowly. The oven looms like a yawning mouth, its belly glowing with orange heat. You're told to bring more wood. You drag bundles into the chamber, your arms quivering under the load. You hear the hiss as the flames catch, leaping higher, feeding greedily. That oven is the heart of the house, and you, with broom and buckets, are its arteries, carrying fuel, carrying away waste. Without you, the whole feast could collapse. Try telling that to the cook, though. Quirky tidbit. Some apprentices swore that if you listened carefully, ovens would whisper, tiny pops and cracks that carried secrets. You lean close, broom hub dangling, and for a heartbeat you swear you hear a voice mutter something like, "More salt." You laugh under your breath, shaking your head. Either the fire is opinionated, or the lack of sleep is finally catching up. The broom handle rubs raw against your palm. You rotate it, grip shifting, knuckles whitening. You sweep the embers into neat piles, coaxing the hearth toward cleanliness. A rhythm builds. Scrape, shuffle, dump, so steady you almost forget yourself. Joke number 2. Honestly, with this much practice, you could audition as the percussionist in a very slow medieval band. Historians still argue whether apprentices were ever paid in actual coin during their early years, or if they were fed, housed, and left to wait for years before touching silver. You know where you stand. Payment comes in the form of bread crusts and maybe a wink from the older scullery maid when she slides you an onion. You chew slowly, letting the sharp taste cut through the ash still hanging in your mouth. The air grows warmer as dawn spreads through the window slits. The kitchen buzzes. Knives clatter. Pots bubble. The cook yells names like battle commands. You sweep in the corner, more shadow than boy, but you feel strangely central. If not to history, then at least to the state of the floors. Without you, everyone else would slip on soot, and that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Joke number 3. Well, not literally. Medieval people didn't sue each other for slipping on ashes. But you like to imagine one knight yelling, "I'll see you in court," only to realize the court is just another drafty hall with no lawyers, just chickens. Your broom rests for a moment as you lean against the wall. Outside, horses clop in the yard, their breath steaming in the cold. The smell of baking bread filters in, rich, yeasty, mingling with the acrid tang of burnt wood. You close your eyes, breathing through the contrast, soot and sweetness at war in your lungs. It strikes you, briefly, that this will be every day for 7 days and more. The ash will never truly vanish. It only waits to return, same as the dawn. You feel the weight of that knowledge, but also the curious comfort of routine. You sweep, they bake. The house moves forward on this strange wheel of fire and labor. Another bucket tips into the ash pile outside. The wind scatters it in swirls, dark snowflakes drifting across the yard. A dog sneezes, then scampers away, tail low. You chuckle softly, whispering, "Bless you," though no one hears. The broom drags again, and you follow its path as if it might guide you out of this maze of smoke and chores. But the floor is never finished. Each sweep reveals another patch, another stubborn mark. Another layer of yesterday's fire. You trudge onward, soot smudging your vision, your hands, your thoughts. You wonder if, in some distant century, anyone will think of this part. The quiet, boring, necessary sweep of apprentices whose names never made the chronicles. Perhaps not. Yet here you are, in the thick of it, a silent guardian of half-clean hearths. The broom slides again. Another pile grows. Another morning deepens. And still, you sweep. The fire is already awake before you are. You shuffle into the kitchen, eyelids heavy, and the oven glares with an orange glow that makes the shadows dance. Today, the cook is in one of his moods, the kind where every sentence begins with a bark and ends with a threat. Your broom leans in the corner, but now the real command comes. Carry the coals, feed the flames, and keep the heat steady. You stoop beside the ash pile, carefully picking glowing embers with iron tongs. Each coal feels like a tiny sun, radiating a heat that stings your cheeks. You cradle them in a pan, shuffle toward the waiting oven, and tip them in. Sparks leap, bright and momentary, like a festival you aren't invited to. The oven roars its approval, and the cook thrusts doughy loaves toward the heat, muttering that if the bread fails, it'll be your hide. A solid fact to ground you: medieval bread was not a luxury. It was survival. For most households, bread made up nearly 3/4 of daily calories. Without steady ovens and constant fuel, the entire house would go hungry. You realize, as sweat prickles at your temples, that the loaves browning in front of you mean more to the household than your entire existence. You're just the boy with the coals, invisible until you fail. You step back, wiping your brow, only to smear soot across your forehead again. The air is so thick with smoke that you wonder if lungs were designed for this kind of life. Joke number 1. At this rate, you'll cough out a loaf of charcoal bread before the week ends. The kitchen is alive with smells: yeast swelling in dough, onions sizzling in fat, and beneath it all, the sharp tang of wood smoke. You balance the sensation on your tongue, hunger and nausea competing like squabbling brothers. The cook gestures at you to fetch more wood. You stagger outside, pile logs into your arms, and drag them back in. The world outside is cold, bright with early frost. Inside, the kitchen blazes hot enough to melt your willpower. Quirky tidbit: some households kept oven fairies, tiny charms or tokens placed near the fire to ensure good bread. You glance at the corner of the hearth, and yes, there's a chipped clay figurine staring at you with blank eyes. You're not sure if it's supposed to bring luck or haunt your dreams. You decide not to ask. Back at the oven, you crouch low, watching the crusts form. The loaves rise, sigh, and crack open, releasing steam that curls around your face. Historians still argue whether most loaves were baked communally at village ovens or in private kitchens like this. You know only that your back aches from carrying fuel and your palms burn from lifting pans. Communal or private, someone always had to feed the fire. And today, that someone is you. The cook barks again, thrusting a wooden peel into your hands. "Fetch them out, boy," he snaps, as though you've been training for the bread Olympics. You slide the peel under a loaf, nerves jangling, and drag it out. The bread lands heavy, crust dark and fragrant. For a moment, you feel a rush of triumph. You, soot-smeared apprentice, brought food into the world. Joke number 2. If there were a knighthood for clumsy bakers, you'd be Sir Crust-a-Lot. But triumph is fleeting. The next loaf sticks, the peel jerks, and the cook curses. You scramble to adjust, face hot with embarrassment and oven heat. Finally, The loaves line the table, steam curling upward like offerings to some kitchen god. Your stomach growls. But of course these loaves aren't for you. The Lord eats first, the family second, the servants last. And you? You lick your fingers when you're lucky. The broom waits in the corner, silently mocking you. You fetch it again, sweeping ash scattered by your clumsy handling of the coals. The rhythm returns. Scrape, shuffle, dump. Your body falls into the familiar motion, even while your thoughts drift. You wonder how many apprentices like you existed. Faces unrecorded, lungs blackened, hands cracked from wood and water. Whole lives lived in shadows of ovens, their names gone before anyone cared to write them down. The kitchen noise rises, knives thudding on boards, pans hissing, voices layered in constant motion. You sweep unnoticed, except when someone barks, "Move!" or shoves past. Still, in your corner, you feel strangely powerful. Without your labor, the fire weakens. Without the fire, the bread fails. Without bread, the household starves. Joke number 3. No pressure. Just the fate of everyone's stomach resting on your clumsy shoulders. You pause, leaning on the broom handle. Outside, a rooster crows, late and confused. The air shifts, a draft sneaking through the window slits. Ash swirls gently in the breeze, sparkling like gray snow. You breathe in slowly, savoring the strange beauty of it, even as you cough. Life is mostly ash, you think, but even ash can glitter if the light is right. The cook snaps at you again, and the moment dissolves. Back to work. Sweep, haul, fetch, repeat. The bread cools on the table, golden brown, filling the air with the cruelest smell. A feast you'll never touch. Your stomach knots, but your broom moves steadily, and the morning stretches on. The ashes don't stay gone for long. You've barely finished your sweep before the oven spit out more, like some endless beast that eats wood and excretes soot. The pan in your hands is heavy, warm through the iron, and you shuffle toward the yard. The door groans as you push it open, and a gust of cool air rushes in, stinging your smoke-burnt eyes. Outside, the dawn has finally brightened into a pale morning, and the pile of ash you dumped yesterday greets you like an old friend. You tip the pan, and the gray cascade falls in a soft, dirty cloud. It drifts lazily downward, landing on the mound with a sigh. Then the breeze stirs, and suddenly you're caught in your own storm. Flakes of soot spinning around your head, coating your hair, slipping down your collar. You cough, wave your hand, and wonder how anyone can tell the difference between you and the pile. Fact to ground the day. Most medieval towns had specific places for ash disposal, since it piled up so quickly from hearths and ovens. In some cases, it was used to fill potholes in roads, or mixed into lime to help plaster walls. You don't feel like a contributor to urban development, though. Right now, you feel like the world's least glamorous snow shoveler. You lug the empty pan back toward the kitchen. The neighbor's dog trots by, sniffing suspiciously at the cloud you left behind. When it sneezes, you almost laugh. Joke number 1. Congratulations. You've managed to offend a dog with your cooking skills, and you weren't even cooking. Back inside, the cook scowls at the trail of footprints you've left across the floor. He mutters something about careless apprentices, as though you'd been playing tag outside instead of battling the wind with a bucket of ash. You bend low, broom in hand, and begin sweeping again. Each stroke scratches softly, like a lullaby for the stone. You think, maybe this is your true role. Not an apprentice learning skills, but an eternal broom spirit, haunting kitchens forever. Quirky tidbit. Ashes weren't always waste. Mixed with fat, they became soap. Farmers spread them over fields to enrich soil. Some even claimed ash water could lighten hair color. You pause mid-sweep, glance at the smudges on your hands, and wonder if you'll wake tomorrow as a blonde. Probably not. You dump another load outside, bracing for the breeze. This time, you shield your face with your sleeve, though it still clings to your eyelashes. The pile grows higher, a gray mountain recording every loaf baked, every log burned, every pot boiled. You imagine future scholars digging into the soil and finding layers of ash. Historians still argue whether such refuse heaps tell the story of ordinary life better than written chronicles. You suspect they do. You know your own tale is being buried here, grain by grain. The smell follows you everywhere. Smoke sharp in your nostrils, dust bitter on your tongue. You drink from the bucket by the door, cold water trickling down your throat, but even that tastes faintly of cinders. Your hands are cracked, nails rimmed with black, skin rougher each day. The broom handle rubs a sore spot in your palm. You keep sweeping anyway, because stopping isn't an option. The house bustles behind you. The steward shouts instructions. The scullery maid hauls pots. The cook still grumbles. Your broom's sound is softer than all of them, a steady rhythm no one notices. You sweep because the fire never stops, because ash is forever, because this is your lot for the week, and perhaps for years. A cart rattles by outside. You glance through the doorway and see the merchant's boy staring at you, nose wrinkled at the cloud rising from your pile. He looks away quickly, probably grateful that his chores don't leave him covered in soot. Joke number 2. If apprentices were ranked by cleanliness, you'd be nobility of the pigsty. You lean the broom against the wall for a moment, stretching your back. Smoke curls upward from the oven, and for once you find the shape beautiful. It sways and dances before vanishing, like thoughts you'll never share. You think about how many people across the world right now are doing exactly this. Sweeping, dumping, coughing. 1 million invisible apprentices, making comfort for others while they fade into ash themselves. The cook calls again, demanding more fuel. You fetch wood, arms straining under the weight. The logs scrape your skin, leaving faint lines across your forearms. You stack them near the hearth, and immediately another burst of sparks erupts as the fire is fed. The oven snarls, content again, and you step back into your gray-tinged corner. Joke number 3. You decide the oven is like an angry nobleman, always hungry, always dangerous, and always ready to blame you if something goes wrong. At least the oven doesn't drink wine and shout about taxes. Another pan fills, another trip outside. The breeze is quieter now, so the ash falls more obediently. You pat the pile as though smoothing a bed, then wipe your hands on your tunic. It leaves streaks darker than the cloth itself. You wonder how anyone will recognize you at the end of the week, buried beneath your own soot. The day moves on, slow, but relentless. The pile outside swells, the broom scratches, the cook yells, and you drift in the monotony. It's oddly soothing if you stop fighting it. Each sweep erases a moment. Each dump erases a breath, until all you know is the rhythm of ashes falling. You're tired, but you keep moving. Always moving, always sweeping, always returning to the pile, scraps. That's what the day leaves for you, and you take them with the reverence of a starving pilgrim. The fire roars and dies. The bread is carried upstairs. The stews vanish into bowls and mouths you'll never see. When all that remains are crumbs clinging to platters and a thin film of grease at the bottom of a pot, then it's your turn. You crouch on the bench, clutching a crust barely wider than your palm. It's hard as a plank, stale at the edges, but the warmth of the oven still lingers in the center. You chew carefully, teeth working like a carpenter's saw. The taste is simple, earthy, with a sour note from yesterday's dough. For you, it might as well be a feast. Fact to anchor your hunger: bread crusts and broth were the backbone of lower-class diets in medieval Europe. While lords dined on venison and spiced wine, servants and apprentices survived on pottage, a thin stew of whatever could be boiled together. You stare into the pot where onions and cabbage float like tired swimmers, ladle out a scoop and sip. It's watery, but there's a hint of fat clinging to the surface, shimmering in the candlelight. The cook doesn't look your way. He's already wiping down the table, barking orders at the scullery maid, muttering about tomorrow's feast. You know better than to ask for more. Joke number 1. If you want seconds, you'll have to wait until the cook drops dead in the flour bin. And then, good luck, because you'll probably still be sweeping. You slurp quietly, careful not to make noise. The bench beneath you is sticky. The straw on the floor crackles under your shifting feet. Somewhere above, laughter echoes through the beams, the family finishing their own meal, voices rising in merriment. You glance up, wondering if they know or care that you exist. Probably not. Quirky tidbit: in some houses, dogs were allowed to lick plates clean before servants washed them. You glance at the hound dozing by the fire and wonder if you'll have to fight him for scraps. His paw twitches as he dreams, and you pull your crust closer, just in case. The broth warms your chest, and for a moment, you let yourself sink into the comfort of it. The smoky smell fades, replaced by the faint sweetness of carrots, the salt of cabbage, the chewy thread of barley. You sigh, shoulders slumping. The world feels softer with a full stomach, even if full is generous. Historians still argue whether apprentices were considered part of the household family or merely tolerated labor. You know which side you're on. Tolerated, at best. No one saves you a chair at the long table. No one passes you a fresh loaf. Your place is here, on this bench, head low, spoon in hand. You scrape the bowl clean, savoring the last oily streaks, then set it quietly aside. The hound lifts his head, sniffing, and you slide the bowl across the floor. He licks it with relish, tail thumping once before he settles again. At least someone eats well tonight. You rise slowly, broom waiting for you like an old friend, or perhaps a jealous rival, reminding you that you belong more to ash than to bread. The bench creaks as you stand, and your stomach gives one last gurgle of satisfaction. Joke number 2. You think about writing a cookbook called 50 Shades of Crust, but realize no one would buy it, except maybe other apprentices. Desperate for humor, the kitchen settles into evening rhythm. Pans soak in wooden tubs. Knives lie dull on boards. The cook finally falls silent, rubbing his temples as though carrying the weight of the house. You sweep softly, careful not to disturb the fragile piece. Each brushstroke feels lighter now, buoyed by the small comfort of broth and bread. You notice the scullery maid tucking something behind a pot. Détours. When no one is looking, you sneak over and find it. A shriveled apple, half bruised but edible. You slip it into your pocket like treasure, heart pounding with the thrill of such a minor theft. Quirky treasures like this keep you going. Outside, dusk gathers. The last light seeps through the window slits, painting the ash pile in silver. You carry out one more pan, tip it onto the mound, and watch the wind tug it apart. It scatters into the darkening air, a gray mist dissolving into night. You shiver, though not from cold. Ash seems to cling not just to your skin, but to your thoughts, settling in corners of your mind. Joke number 3. You mutter to yourself, "When I die, Just cremate me with the rest of the pile. No one will notice the difference. Then you chuckle softly, because if you don't laugh, you might cry. Back inside, the hearth glows low, embers pulsing faintly like a tired heart. The broom rests in your hands, lighter now that your belly carries warmth. You sweep in slow arcs, savoring the rhythm, letting your mind wander. You think of tomorrow's chores, of more bread, more broth, more ash. It should feel overwhelming, but instead it feels inevitable, like the turning of seasons. You finish the floor, lean the broom in its corner, and stretch your sore arms. Your pocket presses against your side, the apple still there, a secret waiting for later. You pat it once, smile faintly, and let the day exhale around you. Another crust, another bowl, another evening fading into soot. You're still here, still sweeping, still surviving. One scrap at a time, the broom scratches across stone again, steady as a heartbeat. By now you know its rhythm almost better than your own pulse. Each bristle catches on the grooves carved by centuries of footsteps, dragging up dust that was probably already here when the house was built. Your arms ache, but the scrape has become part of you, reliable, repetitive, endlessly boring. And yet, today brings something different. Voices, weaving through the smoky kitchen air. Servants gather near the table, not out of leisure, but because hands need to keep working even while tongues wag. The scullery maid scrubs pans so furiously the water splashes onto her apron. The steward fusses over a ledger, muttering numbers like spells. The cook, of course, still mutters to himself about salt and fools. And in between, gossip bubbles. Quiet at first, then louder, as though the walls themselves lean closer to hear. You sweep near the edge, pretending not to listen. But of course, every word slides into your ears. Fact. Kitchens were notorious places for information leaks in medieval households. Servants overheard noble arguments, political plans, even scandalous affairs, and carried them out into the town like crumbs falling from a loaf. Today, the whispers are about the Lord's daughter. One maid swears she saw her walking with a merchant's son near the orchard, though she was supposed to be embroidering. Another insists the Lord himself argued with a messenger about unpaid debts. The steward frowns but doesn't correct them, his silence louder than words. You push the broom slowly, pretending to chase ashes, but really you're chasing fragments of stories. Joke number 1. You realize the kitchen is less a workplace and more the medieval version of a social network. The broom in your hands? That's just your subscription fee. The scullery maid smirks as she lowers her voice, sharing some rumor about a feast gone wrong in the next village. Too much ale, too little meat, and a minstrel who sang so poorly that someone threw a turnip. Everyone chuckles softly. You do too, though your laugh comes out as a wheeze because of the smoke clinging in your throat. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval kitchens employed spit dogs, small, long-bodied dogs trained to run inside wooden wheels that turned roasting spits. You glance at the hound curled by the hearth and wonder if he ever dreams of promotion from plate liquor to roast spinner. You imagine him marching proudly, paws moving the spit like some furry engineer. The thought makes you grin, even as the broom keeps moving. The steward clears his throat, and the room falls quiet. He warns the servants not to repeat what they've heard. But you know better. By tomorrow, half the town will be whispering the same things, and no broom in the world could sweep away rumors once they scatter. Historians still argue whether servant gossip truly shaped events or merely flavored them. But from your corner, it feels powerful. Words, after all, spread faster than fire. You lean on the broom a moment, back sore, eyes stinging from the smoke. The gossip fades into chores again. Water hauled, knives scraped, bread cooled. But the echoes remain in your head, stories settling there, just like ash settles in every crack of the hearth. Joke number 2. You think about how, if you ever escape this life, you could open a tavern and make a fortune just by repeating kitchen gossip. No ale required, just charge by the secret. You sweep closer to the fire, the broom stirring faint embers. A spark jumps, landing near your shoe, and you stomp it quickly. The cook yells without even looking, as if the fire's misbehavior is automatically your fault. You nod, bite your tongue, and keep sweeping. The voices behind you rise again, softer this time, almost conspiratorial. Someone mentions a thief caught in the market. Another talks about plague in a distant town. The words mix with the scrape of your broom until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. You think, this is the real heartbeat of the house, not the Lord's orders or the steward's ledger, but the steady hum of people talking while they work. Quirky observation. The smoke makes halos around the candles, turning every servant into a saint of gossip. You half expect someone to start a holy order called the Blessed Broom and Bucket. You'd be first in line to join, mostly for the bread rations. The broom drags again, bristles worn thin. You know you'll be given another when this one dies, just as you were brought in when another apprentice left or collapsed. You wonder idly where he is now, whether he ran or married, or simply breathed too much ash. Joke number 3. Maybe he joined the oven fairies you imagined yesterday, whispering about salt from inside the fire. The cook slams a pot down, startling everyone back to silence. The moment of camaraderie fades, replaced by hurried footsteps and lowered heads. You keep sweeping, though your ears still buzz with the words you heard. Rumors are like ash. No matter how many times you brush them away, they cling to everything. Outside, the bell tolls the hour. The scullery maid groans, the steward sighs, and you realize another morning has passed, lost in sweeping and listening. The broom rests in your hands, warm from your grip, steady as always. You take another pass across the hearth, gathering the last stubborn streaks of soot, and feel the quiet settle again. The gossip may fade, the ash may return, but you know you'll remember both. One clings to stone, the other clings to memory, and neither lets go. You sweep once more, a soft rhythm in the hush of the kitchen, and wonder what new whispers tomorrow will bring. The pot boils like it has a grudge. You stand beside it, broom abandoned in the corner for once, watching foam bubble and hiss at the surface. The cook thrusts a wooden spoon into your hands, growling something about skimming the scum before it ruins the stew. You grip the handle, arm already tired, and lean over the cauldron. The steam slaps your face, hot and greasy, smelling of marrow bones and wilted herbs. You drag the spoon across the surface, scooping froth into a bowl. It clings stubbornly, pale and stringy, like the pot itself doesn't want to part with it. Each scoop is a battle, and the cook barks every few seconds, warning you not to waste broth. Fact: in large medieval kitchens, broth was a staple, endlessly boiled and recycled, with pots simmering day and night. Scum had to be skimmed regularly, not for appearance only, but to keep the liquid from souring too quickly. Your arm trembles as you stir, sweat dripping into your eyes. The cook shouts to stir faster, slower, clockwise, counterclockwise. You wonder if there's a secret code to this, or if he simply enjoys tormenting apprentices. Joke number 1. If stirring directions were truly magic, You'd probably summon a demon by accident, and even he would refuse to scrub pots. Steam curls into your hair, plastering strands against your forehead. Your skin prickles from the heat, but the cook doesn't care. He thrusts a knife toward you next, ordering you to slice onions for the stew. The blade is dull, the onions sharp. Tears stream down your cheeks until you're not sure whether you're crying from the sting or from your life choices. You sniff, blink, and keep cutting, each onion ring falling unevenly. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval cooks believed tossing bread crusts into boiling pots would calm them and prevent spillovers. You eye the pot, wonder if tossing yourself in might achieve the same result. Then smirk quietly at your own absurd thought. The scullery maid notices your grin and shakes her head, mouthing something that looks like "poor fool." The stew thickens, dark and fragrant, flecks of parsley floating across the surface. You stir again, wrist aching, and imagine what it might taste like if you ever got more than a spoonful. Meat, real meat, not just fat, boiled to exhaustion. Joke number 2. You decide that if heaven exists, it probably smells like this pot, but comes with unlimited portions. The cook looms over your shoulder, snatches the spoon, tastes, and grunts. He mutters that it's acceptable, which in his language might as well be a royal proclamation. You sag with relief, though your hands are still shaking. Historians still argue whether kitchens like this were creative spaces for culinary invention or simply survival factories producing food in bulk. To you, it feels like both. Artistry layered over necessity, the stew is beautiful in its way, rich and aromatic, but behind it lies your blistered palms, your sore back, your streaming eyes. The next task arrives before you can catch your breath. The cook shoves a pan of meat toward you, scraps too tough for noble teeth, but destined for servant's stew. He orders you to sear them over the fire. You clutch the pan awkwardly, the iron handle searing your skin even through a rag. The fat sizzles, spits, leaps. You jerk back, narrowly dodging a splatter that lands on your sleeve instead of your face. The smell of singed cloth mixes with roasting meat, both unpleasant and comforting at once. Joke number 3. You mutter under your breath that the meat is fighting back, and maybe next time, you'll just wave the pan near the fire and hope intimidation cooks it. The hound lifts his head at the smell, tail thumping. You keep him at bay with a stern glance, though he probably has more right to the scraps than you do. The cook barks again, ordering you to stir, to flip, to season. You obey, clumsy but determined. The meat browns eventually, smoke curling upward in lazy ribbons. By the time the stew is combined, the kitchen feels hotter than a forge. You wipe your face with your sleeve, leaving streaks of grease and soot. The air is thick, heavy, almost chewable. You imagine stepping outside into fresh wind, but there's no chance of that yet. The cook ladles broth into bowls, shoving them toward servants who shuffle past. You stand aside, ignored again, stomach twisting with hunger. Still, you take quiet pride in the work. The pot simmers steadily. The stew smells rich, and you know your hands helped shape it, even if you won't taste it. There's a strange dignity in that, hidden under layers of ash and sweat. The broom leans in the corner, patient and inevitable. Soon it will be back in your hands, dragging you into the rhythm of sweeping again. But for now, you linger by the pot, watching bubbles rise and break, as if the stew itself is breathing. You wonder whether all kitchens sound like this, hissing, bubbling, sizzling, shouting. You suspect they do. Outside, a bell tolls. Time doesn't care about your stew or your burns or your broom. It marches on, relentless. You glance at the pot one last time, then reach for the broom, bracing yourself for another round of soot. The day isn't over. The fire still burns, the ash still gathers, and the broom still waits. Smoke clings to you like a second skin. You try to shake it off, but it seeps into every seam of your tunic, every strand of hair, every pore in your body. The moment you step away from the boiling pot, you cough. First a polite little tickle, then a rasping hack that bends you over the broom handle. The cook ignores it, muttering about carrots. To him, apprentices are as replaceable as onions. You sweep again, not because the floor needs it, but because your hands feel wrong if they aren't moving. The ash swirls up, shimmering in the dim light, and your throat tightens. Fact: in the Middle Ages, chimney sweeps and kitchen boys often suffered from chronic coughs, their lungs filled with soot. Some lived with wheezes all their lives, long before anyone thought to name such things occupational hazards. You don't need a name to know the ache in your chest. You drag your sleeve across your mouth, trying to muffle the sound. The scullery maid glances at you, brow furrowed. "Still breathing," she whispers. You nod, forcing a grin. Joke number 1. You croak back. "Barely. Give me another week, and I'll sound like the bellows." She chuckles, then goes back to her pans. The hearth spits sparks, as if laughing too. Heat blasts against your face, making the chill draft at your back seem like a blessing. You squat low, sweeping carefully around the fire, eyes watering from the smoke. Each breath feels like chewing cinders, and your ribs ache with the effort. Quirky tidbit: ashes weren't only a nuisance, they were used in early tooth-cleaning powders. You pause, broom in hand, and imagine scrubbing your teeth with the same grit that's clogging your lungs. The irony makes you cough harder, though this time it's a laugh tangled with the rasp. You retreat to the doorway for air. Outside, the sky glows pale, the sun just climbing. You gulp cold wind, sharp and clean compared to the smoky cave behind you. Your lungs protest, but you draw in another breath anyway, holding it like treasure. Then the cook bellows, and back inside you go. The broom finds its rhythm again. Scrape, shuffle, dump. Historians still argue whether servants had any say in their conditions, or if they endured silently. You know the answer from the inside. You endure because you must. Complaints are as useless as sweeping in a windstorm. The ashes return no matter what you say. Another coughing fit racks you, sharp and sudden. You brace yourself on the broom handle until it passes. A black smear marks your palm when you pull it away. You wipe it on your tunic, adding to the growing patchwork of soot. Joke number 2. You mutter to yourself that if you keep coughing up soot, eventually you'll produce enough to fuel the oven on your own. A self-sufficient apprentice, what every lord dreams of. The cook tosses bones into the pot, splashing broth onto the floor. You sweep it up with ash, creating a sticky paste that clings to the bristles. The smell of boiled marrow fills the room, heavy and sweet, wrapping itself around your already strained lungs. You breathe shallowly, broom moving in small arcs, hoping to outlast the stifling haze. The scullery maid hums a tune, soft and off-key. The steward snaps at her, but the sound lingers, floating above the crackle of fire. It almost soothes you, though each inhale still scratches your throat raw. You wonder if music is the only thing in this house that doesn't smell like smoke. Quirky observation: some medieval healers recommended burning herbs like rosemary or juniper to cleanse the air. You imagine tossing a bundle onto the fire, watching the fragrant smoke wrestle with the choking soot. Would it help? Or would it just make your cough smell like a spice market? Your body feels heavy, weighed down by air that refuses to refresh you. You slump onto a stool, broom across your knees, chest rising and falling like a bellows gone weak. For a moment, you close your eyes, letting the steady hum of the kitchen carry you. But the cough comes again, dragging you back. Historians still argue whether early households recognized the health costs of smoky kitchens. Some records suggest concerns. Others shrug them off as part of life. You think, whether they argued or not, none of them were the ones sweeping. Joke number 3. You decide that if you ever escape this, you'll become a scholar yourself, writing long, dusty books about how not to die from dust. The broom drags once more across the hearth, bristles blackened, handle warm in your hand. You cough, sweep, breathe, cough again. The rhythm becomes a grim melody, one you can't stop humming along to. Ash rises, lungs tighten, broom moves. Over and over, as though the kitchen itself has decided this is your song. You glance toward the window, the sky beyond still pale but promising clarity. For a heartbeat, you imagine stepping out, inhaling until your lungs feel clean again. But the cook calls, the oven roars, the broom waits. And so, you stay. The cough lingers, a shadow inside you, as the day stretches onward in smoke and ash. The broom is back in your hand before you even notice, as though it has grown there, part of your arm, part of your fate. You think of setting it down, but the moment you try, someone calls your name, demanding wood, or water, or knives. The kitchen is less a room and more a hungry beast with endless mouths, and you are the one who feeds it. You start with water. The well stands in the courtyard, dark and deep, its rope stiff with morning frost. You grip the handle and lower the bucket, listening to the echo of the chain rattling against stone. When the bucket splashes into the water below, the sound is so crisp and cool, you wish you could dive in yourself. You haul it back up, arms straining, rope burning your palms. Water sloshes over your tunic as you stagger inside, dripping across the already blackened floor. Fact to keep in mind, in many medieval households, water had to be hauled constantly because kitchens consumed it faster than anything else. Washing pots, boiling stews, brewing ale. Wells were lifelines, and the boys who fetched buckets often spent more time bent over rope than broom. You dump the bucket into a tub, wipe your brow, and immediately hear the bark. More. Back out again. Rope, bucket, splash, haul, stagger. Your shoulders ache like they've been hammered. Joke number 1. You mutter under your breath that at this rate, you'll develop one arm bigger than the other. A fine look for an apprentice trying to impress absolutely no one. Next comes wood. The pile outside seems taller every time you look at it, as though logs multiply when you're not watching. You crouch, heft one after another into your arms, until the stack threatens to topple over your head. You wobble back inside, stumbling over the threshold, nearly dropping the load when the scullery maid brushes past. The cook growls for you to hurry, as if fires wait politely. Quirky tidbit. Some kitchens employed boys whose sole job was wood bearers, dragging logs from dawn to dusk. They were so common that their nicknames stuck in parish records. Tom the Log, Henry Woodlad. You wonder if one day someone will remember you only as that boy who carried splinters. You drop the logs near the oven, arms trembling. Before you can straighten, a knife is shoved into your hand. The steward points at a pile of turnips and onions, commanding you to chop. The blade is dull, the board scarred. You hack away, clumsy, uneven slices scattering across the surface. Your stomach growls at the smell, but none of this will touch your mouth. Historians still argue whether apprentices were truly learning a trade or simply being used as cheap labor. With the knife slipping dangerously close to your fingers, you decide the answer leans heavily toward cheap labor. You finish the pile, sweat dampening your collar. The broom waits, leaning smugly in the corner. You sigh and return to it, dragging bristles across stone. The ash obeys reluctantly, gathering in gray heaps that never feel final. You sweep one corner, turn, and another patch glares at you. The kitchen is endless, or maybe the ash is simply alive. Joke number 2. You imagine tomorrow's chore list reading: Step 1, sweep. Step 2, sweep what you just swept. The steward shouts again. Knives need sharpening. You fetch the whetstone, dragging blades across its surface with a rhythm that reminds you of the broom. Shk, shk, shk. Sparks glimmer faintly. Your fingers ache. Your ears buzz with the scrape. When the last knife shines dully, you return it, already bracing for the next task. It comes quickly. The cook demands you fetch herbs from the small garden. You dart outside, grateful for fresh air. The garden smells of damp earth and thyme, a sharp relief from smoke. You snip sprigs, crush leaves between your fingers, breathing deep. For a moment, you feel alive again. Then the bell tolls, and you hurry back inside, arms full of green. The cook barely glances at you before tossing the herbs into a pot. Steam bursts upward, fragrant, smothering your brief joy. You cough, set the empty basket aside, and reach once more for the broom. Quirky observation. You notice your hands no longer look like your own. They're blistered, cracked, blackened, nails jagged. You imagine showing them to a fortune teller who would shake her head and say, "Your fate? More sweeping." Historians still argue whether servants like you developed skills transferable to better lives. Cooking, baking, brewing, or whether most were trapped forever in endless chores. You can't see that far ahead. You only know that each day is another round of hauling, chopping, sweeping, coughing. Joke number 3. You whisper that you're the true lord of multitasking, though your kingdom consists only of ash, splinters, and sore muscles. The broom moves again, bristles soft against stone. You hear laughter above, nobles dining, voices warm with wine. You wonder if they know you exist down here, scraping soot into piles while they sip from silver cups. Maybe they don't. Maybe you are just part of the floor itself, invisible unless you fail. The fire roars as more wood catches. Pots bubble, knives flash, voices rise. You keep moving, part of the hum, part of the rhythm. Ash, water, wood, knives, herbs, sweep, haul, chop, fetch, stir. The day spins like a wheel, and you are bound to its spokes. By the time you pause, back sore, lungs tight, you realize hours have passed. The broom leans in your hand like an old friend who refuses to leave. You rest a moment, eyes on the glowing oven, then take another step, dragging soot into neat little piles that will be gone only until the next log burns. Another day of chores, never ending, never done. Small victories keep you alive. They're not dramatic. No feasts, no rewards, no shining coins pressed into your hand. They're barely noticeable, scraps of joy hiding in the ash. But in the endless loop of sweeping, hauling, coughing, those scraps matter more than silver. It begins with the apple. You almost forgot about it. The shriveled thing the scullery maid slipped behind a pot yesterday. Now, tucked into your pocket, it presses against your hip like a secret ally. You sneak away to the corner, back turned, and bite. The skin is wrinkled, tart enough to make your eyes water, but the flesh is sweet, clinging stubbornly to its core. You chew slowly, savoring each crunch as though it were a banquet. For a moment, you taste something beyond ash. Fact to ground your sweetness: apprentices often survived on scraps, or whatever they could pilfer without notice. Bread crusts, bruised fruit, bones sucked clean of meat. Food theft was common, but so was punishment when caught. You chew carefully, ears pricked for footsteps. When none come, you let yourself smile. The broom leans beside you, patient as ever. You sigh. Wipe your hands and take it up again. The scrape against stone feels lighter now, buoyed by the apple's sugar. Joke number 1. You mutter that if apples keep doctors away, then this one tiny fruit has a monumental task ahead, because your cough alone could fund an entire medical school. Later, when the cook stomps past without shouting at you, you count it as another victory. Silence from him is rarer than praise. You sweep a little straighter, chest puffed, though soot still streaks your cheek. Quirky tidbit: some servants tied charms to their brooms, hoping to ward off misfortune or summon luck. You glance at yours, worn and splintered, and consider tying your apple core to it. But you decide luck might laugh at such desperation, so you simply keep sweeping. The scullery maid drops a sliver of cheese into your hand when no one's watching. It's barely larger than your thumb, but it melts on your tongue like a miracle. You nod thanks, and she grins, teeth crooked, eyes bright. The broom scratches happily across the floor, as if it too approves. Historians still argue whether camaraderie among servants created true bonds, or if necessity forced them into shallow alliances. You suspect it doesn't matter. Whether fleeting or lasting, these kindnesses keep you upright, keep the broom moving, keep the cough from swallowing you whole. You pause near the hearth, letting heat warm your aching hands. A spark leaps, but for once it doesn't burn you. Joke number 2. You whisper to the fire, "Finally, we're on the same team." Outside, the yard bustles with merchants. Through the doorway you see colors flash: red cloth, blue ribbons, golden pears. You can't buy them, can't taste them, but seeing them feels like peeking through a window into another life. You sweep near the door younger than necessary, letting yourself steal glances. Quirky observation: in some places, apprentices were allowed to visit fairs once a year, carrying coins earned from tips. You wonder if you'll ever see one, or if your only fare is the swirl of ash in sunlight. The broom bristles wear thinner with each pass. You run your fingers across them, feeling the split ends, the rough fibers. You think, we're not so different, this broom and I. Worn down, overlooked, still working. Joke number 3. You murmur that if you and the broom were switched places, no one would notice. The broom would lean against the hearth, coughing. You'd scratch across stone, bristles bent, still sweeping. Evening nears, shadows stretching across the kitchen. The cook softens with the dim light, voice less sharp, movements slower. He doesn't shout when you sweep past his boots. He barely notices. That, too, feels like a victory. You keep the broom steady, savoring the hush. The hound pads over, sniffing at your sleeve. You scratch his ear absent-mindedly, soot smearing into his fur. He licks your hand in return. You chuckle softly, the sound surprising even yourself. It feels like laughter is a rebellion here, small but stubborn. Historians still argue whether apprentices ever found joy in their labor, or if memory softens what was only misery. Standing there, broom in hand, belly holding an apple and a sliver of cheese, you know the answer. Joy exists, hidden, fragile, but real. It comes in crumbs, in glances, in the quiet scrape of bristles that suddenly feels like music instead of punishment. The broom sweeps another pile. The fire sighs low. The kitchen settles into twilight. You tuck the apple core deeper into your pocket, a tiny relic of victory. Tomorrow will bring more ash, more chores, more coughing. But tonight, you let yourself believe you've won something, even if only a bite of sweetness. The day ends where it always does, on straw. The loft is tucked above the kitchen, reached by a ladder so rickety you climb it with your breath held, praying it won't splinter beneath your weight. The air up here is warmer than the yard, but colder than the kitchen, and it smells of smoke, sweat, and the damp of unwashed bodies. You crawl across the floor, straw rustling like whispers, and collapse into your usual hollow. The bedding is little more than a sack stuffed with reeds and straw, thin enough that you feel each slat of wood beneath. The straw pricks your skin through your tunic, pokes your neck when you shift, and crunches loudly whenever you move. You curl onto your side, knees tucked, hoping to find a position where the stalks don't stab quite as sharply. Fact: most apprentices slept in lofts above kitchens or stables, tucked out of sight, but close enough to wake quickly for chores. Privacy was non-existent, comfort unheard of. Sleep was a necessity, not a pleasure, You breathe shallowly, staring at the beams above, their shadows flickering with the last glow from the hearth below. The cough follows you into bed. You muffle it against your arm, not wanting to wake the others. A line of boys lies sprawled across the loft, each bundled in their own mound of straw. Snores rise and fall like waves. Someone mutters in his sleep. Another scratches noisily. You roll your eyes, though no one can see. Joke number 1. You think to yourself that if there's a lullaby in this house, it's composed of coughing fits and rat squeaks. You tug your blanket tighter. A thin wool, more whole than cloth. It smells faintly of mildew, but it traps just enough warmth to keep your teeth from chattering. The straw rustles again as you shift, trying to avoid the fleas. They're relentless, crawling across your skin no matter how you swat. You scratch until your nails leave lines on your arms, then sigh in defeat. Quirky tidbit: fleas weren't just nuisances. They carried more than itching. In later centuries, they became infamous for spreading plague, though here and now they are simply everyday companions. You whisper bitterly, "Good night, my loyal army," as another bite prickles your ankle. The loft is dark, except for a sliver of moonlight creeping through a crack in the wall. Dust motes float in it, turning lazily as though time itself has slowed. You close your eyes, listening. Below, the kitchen sighs with its dying fire. Outside, an owl hoots. Inside, boys snore, scratch, mutter, cough. The world hums quietly, and you try to drift with it. Historians still argue whether apprentices were given fixed hours of rest, or if they were woken whenever chores demanded. You know the truth. Rest comes when the house permits it, not when your body begs for it. Joke number 2. You decide that if sleep were truly a luxury, then your bed would be worth less than the broom. At least the broom doesn't bite you. The straw rustles again as you roll onto your back. You stare at the beams, tracing patterns in the knots. One looks like a crooked face, another like a bird mid-flight. You let your imagination wander, sketching stories in wood grain. For a moment, you almost forget the itch of fleas and the rasp of smoke still clinging to your throat. The boy beside you snores loudly, jerking awake with a snort. He mumbles something about bread, then rolls over. You stifle a laugh, covering your mouth. Quirky observation. Dreams seem kinder than reality, even when they're about loaves you'll never taste. Your eyes grow heavy. The straw prickles. The blanket scratches. The air smells of soot. But exhaustion softens everything. You let yourself sink, drifting between the coughs, the snores, the tiny scratching sounds of rats in the corner. Joke number 3. You whisper to yourself, "If I wake up and the broom is lying beside me, I'll marry it." And you chuckle softly, then close your eyes. Sleep comes slowly, unevenly, like ash settling after wind. You don't fight it. You simply let the darkness fold around you, straw and fleas and all, until the kitchen bell rings again. Dreams sneak in despite the fleas, despite the cough, despite the straw, poking like tiny needles. You drift in and out, half asleep, half aware of the boys shifting around you. Sometimes their mutters weave into your dreams, and sometimes your own thoughts wander so far they feel like another world entirely. You imagine yourself not in this loft, but in a wide green field. The sky is enormous, clouds drifting lazily as though time itself has slowed. You walk barefoot through grass, no broom in hand, no ash in your hair. The only smoke is from distant cottages, curling gently like ribbons. You laugh softly in your sleep, or maybe in your dream, unsure which. Fact to ground your drifting. Fairs and fields were more than fantasies for apprentices. Many villages held annual markets, and some lucky servants were allowed a day to see them. There, colors burst from cloth stalls, spices tickled the air, and jugglers tossed torches. You picture yourself in that crowd, free for once, your lungs full of spice instead of soot. The loft creaks as someone turns over. A cough echoes, not yours this time, but sharp enough to yank you halfway back to waking. You shift, close your eyes again, and let the dream return. This time, you picture yourself not in a field, but at a fair, coins jingling in your pocket. Joke number 1. Of course, in reality, if you had coins, you'd probably spend them on more bread instead of ribbons. But in the dream, you buy both, because dreams don't have stewards counting every crumb. The fair swells around you. Musicians play lutes off-key. Acrobats wobble on ropes. Children shriek with laughter. You drift from stall to stall, tasting honey cakes, sipping cider, trading jokes with strangers. For a moment, the ash is gone, your cough forgotten. You are just a boy in the sun, free and foolish. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval fairs even had puppet plays, rough wooden figures telling stories of saints, sinners, and tricksters. In your dream, you watch one, and the puppet looks suspiciously like the cook, wagging its finger and shouting about onions. You laugh until you wake yourself with a snort. You lie still, staring at the dark beams above, the dream fading like smoke. The cough comes back, soft but persistent. You hug your blanket closer, but your mind keeps wandering. What if you did run away? What if you left the broom behind, slipped out in the night, and never returned? Historians still argue whether apprentices often escaped their masters, or if most stayed bound until they earned a trade. You know the risks. caught, you'd be whipped or dragged back in shame. But the thought lingers anyway. Sweet as the apple you ate yesterday. Joke number 2. You mutter to yourself that if you ever escape, you'll open the first ash-free inn and become rich just by letting people breathe clean air. The loft creaks again. A boy near you mutters, then goes still. The hound below shifts, nails clicking on stone. The kitchen embers crackle faintly, glowing through the cracks in the floor. You close your eyes once more, letting the warmth seep up through the boards. The dream returns, softer this time. You see yourself walking down a road, pack slung over your shoulder. No one calls your name. No one orders you back. The broom is gone. The ash is gone. You walk until fields open wide, and the only sound is wind in the grass. You breathe deep, lungs filling clean for the first time. Quirky observation. You realize your dreams are always filled with air, fresh wind, wide skies, open fields. Maybe your body longs for what your lungs can't find here. Joke number 3. You think that if anyone could bottle dream air and sell it at market, apprentices everywhere would buy it by the jug. The straw rustles as you shift again, chasing comfort that doesn't exist. The blanket clings to you, thin but stubborn. The cough comes once more, then fades. Sleep pulls at you, steady and irresistible. The dreams blur into one another. Fields, fairs, freedom. Even if you never see them, they feel real for a little while, and that is enough to carry you through the night. The morning bell drags you back from dream fields to the ash pit of reality. You tumble from the loft, straw clinging to your hair, and land hard on aching feet. The kitchen greets you with its familiar breath, smoke, grease, and the sour tang of yesterday's stew left too long in the pot. You reach for the broom automatically, but the steward waves you off. Today, you're to go to market. A leather pouch thumps into your hand, heavy with coins that don't belong to you. The steward glares as if daring you to lose even one. You nod solemnly, though inside your chest flickers something like excitement. Market days mean escape, if only for an hour. You tuck the pouch into your belt, pull your cloak tight against the chill, and step into the street. Fact: markets were the lifeblood of medieval towns, bustling once or twice a week with stalls selling everything from meat pies to iron nails. Villagers gathered not only to buy, but to gossip, to flirt, to listen to news carried by travelers. You walk into that hum now, your broom arm grateful for the change, your lungs still wheezing from smoke, but eager for fresh air. The cobblestones are crowded already. Women in wool cloaks barter over baskets of apples. A butcher waves slabs of pork fat like flags. The air is thick with smells. Spices sharp as pepper. Cheese pungent as old socks. Bread sweet enough to make your stomach ache. You weave through the crowd, clutching the pouch, feeling both important and invisible. Joke number 1. You whisper to yourself that you must look suspicious. Soot-streaked face, ragged tunic, clutching coins like a miser. If you weren't you, you'd suspect you too. The first errand is simple. Bread. You hand over a coin, accept a sack of loaves still warm from the oven. The baker barely glances at you, already shouting prices to the next customer. You sling the sack over your shoulder, heart thumping at the smell. You wonder if you could sneak a bite without anyone noticing. Then you imagine the steward's glare and think better of it. Next, vegetables. Carrots, leeks, and a turnip the size of your head. You juggle the bundle awkwardly, nearly tripping over a goose that hisses at your ankles. The goose chases you a few steps, wings flapping. Quirky tidbit. Geese were often used as guard animals in markets, their noise alerting sellers to thieves. You wave your bundle like a shield, muttering curses, until the bird gives up. You pause near a stall selling ribbons, their colors bright as jewels. A girl your age stands behind the counter, twisting a blue ribbon in her hands. She catches your eye and smiles. Your cheeks burn hotter than the oven back home. You want to say something witty, but all that comes out is a cough. She laughs softly, then looks away. You hurry on, clutching your vegetables tighter. Historians still argue whether markets were more about commerce or community, but you know both ring true. Everywhere you turn, voices rise, not just bargaining, but sharing news. A minstrel strums a lute, singing about some knight's victory. A preacher warns of sin near the well. Children dart through the crowd, chasing each other with shrieks. The market is alive in a way kitchens never are. Joke number 2. You think that if kitchens are prisons, markets are carnivals. Except you're the one running errands instead of eating pies. You stop at the butcher's stall, hand over more coins, and accept a parcel of meat wrapped in cloth. It leaks slightly, staining your sleeve, but you don't care. The butcher winks, tossing you a sliver of gristle as a reward. You chew it greedily, savoring the salt and fat, even as it sticks between your teeth. The last errand takes you to the spice cellar, his table lined with jars. The steward's instructions echo in your head. Pepper, salt, maybe a pinch of saffron if the price is fair. You pass over coins with trembling fingers, trying not to gape at the glittering powders. Quirky observation. Pepper was so prized in some centuries, it was called black gold. You wonder if a single grain could buy you freedom. You slip the packet into your pouch, then tighten the strings. Historians still argue whether apprentices like you ever enjoyed markets or dreaded them. For you, it's both. The colors, the noise, the smells, they thrill you. But every step is a test, every coin a weight, every glance a reminder you don't belong. You are not here to linger. You are here to serve. Joke number 3. You mutter that if you ever run away, it will be during market day, hiding inside a turnip cart. Who would suspect the soot-streaked boy under the vegetables? The errand's done. You trudge back through the streets, arms aching with bundles. The crowd presses against you, jostling, pulling, shoving. You clutch the pouch tighter, heart pounding with each bump. When you finally reach the kitchen door, you exhale in relief. The steward snatches the coins, counts them twice, then nods grudgingly. The cook grabs the food without thanks, already barking orders. You set the bundles down, shoulders sagging. The market's brightness fades, swallowed by smoke and soot once more. Still, you carry the memory. The girl with the ribbon, the goose with its hiss, the music of the lute. Tiny sparks of life, tucked into the ash of your days. Enough to keep you sweeping, at least until tomorrow. The day feels ordinary until it doesn't. You sweep as usual, the bristles scratching against stone. Piles of soot gathering in small gray hills. The cook mutters about stews. The steward shuffles his ledger. The scullery maid scrapes pans. It's the same rhythm you've learned to live inside, steady as a heartbeat. But rhythm breaks easily, and today it shatters with fire. The oven roars too loudly. You notice it before anyone else does. The flames licking higher than they should. The smoke thicker, darker, spilling into the room. You edge closer, broom in hand, heart tightening. The wood you stacked earlier was damp, and now it spits and pops like angry fireworks. You crouch, grab the iron peel, and try to push the logs back into order. Then it happens. One log tumbles out, rolling onto the hearth, scattering sparks across the floor. You jump back, broom clattering, eyes wide. The cook wheels on you, face redder than the flames. He shouts, voice cracking like a whip, blaming you for feeding the fire wrong, for stacking the wood wrong, for existing wrong. Fact: kitchens were the most dangerous places in medieval houses. Fires started easily, spreading from ovens or open hearths into timber beams. Many great homes lost roofs, halls, or entire wings to accidents. You know this, but the knowledge doesn't save you from the storm now raging in human form. The cook bellows for water. You sprint, grab a bucket, slosh it onto the hearth. The sparks hiss. The log dies. The fire sulks back into its cage. But the damage is done, not to the oven, but to you. The cook's words scorch hotter than flames. He calls you careless, stupid, unworthy. He waves the peel in your direction as though he'd strike you with it. Joke number 1. You think bitterly that if words could cook bread, the household would never go hungry again. The steward joins in, his voice colder, quieter, but no less sharp. He says coins pay for wood, and mistakes waste them. He threatens to dock rations, to report you, to replace you. You bow your head, broom in your hand, chest aching. You want to explain, to tell them the logs were damp, the oven greedy, the sparks wild. But words catch in your throat like soot. Quirky tidbit. In some kitchens, mistakes were punished not with scoldings, but with public humiliation. Apprentices made to wear signs or to eat ashes as penance. You glance at the ash pile outside and wonder if today will end with you choking down dust. The cook continues, voice booming. The scullery maid glances your way, sympathy in her eyes, but she says nothing. No one does. You stand alone in the storm. Historians still argue whether apprentices learned resilience through such treatment, or whether it simply broke them down. In this moment, you feel both breaking and hardening at once. Joke number 2. You imagine future scholars writing, "This boy's chief contribution was discovering how loudly one man could shout about wood." When the tirade finally ebbs, you nod, throat tight. You pick up the broom, your old shield, and return to sweeping. The bristles whisper against the floor, softer than the cook's rage but steadier. Each stroke feels like defiance. You are still here, still moving, still sweeping, no matter how loud the world roars. The oven settles back into its usual growl. Bread bakes, stews bubble, life resumes. But you feel the sting of the scolding long after. It sits heavy on your shoulders, like another sack of logs to carry. You sweep through it, breathing through it, waiting for the ache to dull. Quirky observation. You notice the broom leaves trails not only of ash, but of your own effort, your own stubbornness. Each line carved into the soot feels like a signature. I was here. I endured. The scullery maid passes you a crust later, slipping it into your hand without words. You chew slowly, letting the taste soften the memory of fire and fury. You think, this is how survival works, not in grand triumphs, but in crumbs after scoldings. Joke number 3. You mutter to yourself that one day, if you ever tell this story, you'll say you battled a dragon in the kitchen. It breathed fire, roared threats, and you defeated it with a broom. The truth will be less glorious, but perhaps more honest. Evening falls, shadows stretching across the hearth. The cook's voice grows hoarse. The steward retreats to his books. The scullery maid hums softly again. You keep sweeping, each stroke washing away sparks, scolding, shame. The broom steadies you, even as it wears you down. The fire crackles, subdued but alive. The ash gathers, obedient but endless. The day ends not with triumph, but with you still standing, still sweeping, still enduring. And in this place, maybe that is enough. The night air hums with music you will never see. Somewhere beyond the kitchen walls, beyond the courtyard, beyond the gate where dogs pace back and forth, a festival has begun. The faint strum of a lute drifts in, thin as smoke. Drums thump softly, muffled by distance. Voices rise in laughter, calling to one another, and you catch the rhythm of a song carried on the breeze. You pause, broom in hand, leaning against the hearth. For a moment, you let the sound fill you. It is warm, bright, alive. The very opposite of the cold ash at your feet. Fact: festivals were vital to medieval life, offering rare breaks from labor. They marked saints' days, harvests, and feasts, pulling entire towns into celebration. You know all this, but you also know the truth. Servants rarely joined. Someone had to keep the fires burning while others danced. The cook barks at you to sweep faster. You push the broom across the stones, though your ears tilt toward the window. The broom scratches a dull counterpoint to the music outside, like a sour note in a song. You sigh, shoulders slumping. Joke number 1. You whisper to yourself that if sweeping were ever made into a festival sport, you'd finally have a chance at glory. The scullery maid hums along with the distant tune, her voice quiet, nearly drowned by the fire's hiss. The steward scolds her for idleness, but you hear the melody anyway. It lingers, threading through the smoke, turning ash piles into makeshift drum beats beneath your broom. You sweep in rhythm for a while, imagining that you too are part of the festival. Quirky tidbit: some festivals included mock trials, where villagers dressed as judges and punished each other with silly sentences, like carrying buckets of water or wearing donkey ears. You smirk, thinking the cook would make a perfect defendant, sentenced to silence for one whole day. The broom digs into a crack between stones, jarring your wrist. You yank it free, the spell broken. The festival feels farther away now, its laughter crueler, because it reminds you what you lack. Historians still argue whether servants resented missing such events or accepted it as part of their lot. You know the answer inside your chest. Resentment burns hotter than the hearth. Joke number 2. You imagine yourself sneaking into the festival disguised as a chimney sweep, only to realize that disguise is your real life. The hound stirs at the doorway, ears twitching at the music. He whines softly, as though he too wishes to join. You crouch and scratch behind his ears, soot smearing into his fur. "Not for us," you whisper. He rests his head on your knee, sharing the weight of disappointment. The broom resumes its path, slow arcs across the floor. Ash gathers obediently, though your mind drifts beyond the walls. You picture lanterns swaying in the square, ribbons fluttering from poles, children racing with sticky hands. You imagine meat roasting on spits, the smell so strong it would erase the smoke in your lungs. You close your eyes for a second, letting the vision soothe you. Quirky observation. You realize the festival might not be as perfect as you dream. The music might be off-key, the meat too salty, the ale too sour. But still, it would be freedom, however flawed. The steward shuffles past, muttering about accounts. He glances at you, broom in hand, and nods curtly. That, apparently, is all the praise you'll ever get. You sweep harder, as if proving you belong here. though your heart dances in the square outside. Joke number 3. You murmur that if you ever join a festival, you'll enter the costume contest dressed as a broom. At least then, someone might finally notice you. The music rises suddenly, a cheer echoing through the night. You freeze, broom mid-sweep, straining to catch every note. For one breath, it feels as though the whole world is celebrating but you. Then the cook slams a pot onto the table, and the moment collapses. You sweep in silence after that, letting ash pile higher than usual before gathering it. The broom feels heavier, the room darker, though the oven still glows. Outside, the festival drums on, bright and untouchable. Inside, you remain a shadow with a broom, sweeping the echoes of joy you cannot reach. The night drags long, broken only by your steady rhythm. Eventually, the music fades, swallowed by distance. The square quiets, the voices hush, the world returns to its usual hum. You set the broom against the wall, shoulders sagging, and stare at the dying fire. The festival has passed you by, as festivals always will. But the broom is still here, waiting. You sigh, pick it up again, and sweep. Because that is what you do. The week has blurred into ash and rhythm. Each day began with smoke in your throat and ended with straw in your hair. Now the 7th day arrives, and you pause long enough to notice how time has folded around you. How 7 mornings of sweeping, coughing, hauling, and scolding can feel like both a blink and a lifetime. You lean on the broom, surveying the kitchen as though it were a battlefield, where you fought and lost, but somehow survived. Fact: medieval apprenticeships could last 7 years or more. A week is nothing compared to that. Yet for you, this single week has felt like a training ground, sharpening muscles you didn't know you had, testing patience you didn't think existed. Your hands are tougher, your cough harsher, your back bent but unbroken. You realize that even if no one else marks your endurance, you do. That's something. The fire snarls in its usual way, greedy for more wood. You fetch it, stacking carefully this time, wary of another scolding. The logs thud into place, sparks rise, and the oven hums in approval. You smirk faintly. Joke number 1. You think to yourself that the oven has become your most reliable critic. Always hungry, always honest, and only occasionally trying to kill you. The cook is quieter today. Maybe even he grows weary of shouting. He mutters instead, stirring a pot, occasionally glaring, but not exploding. The scullery maid hums again, a tune you almost recognize from the festival that drifted through the walls 2 nights ago. You sweep to its rhythm, letting the sound soften the scrape of bristles. For once, the broom feels like part of a song instead of a punishment. Quirky tidbit: ashes, when mixed with water, can create lye, a powerful substance used for cleaning and soap making. You think about that as you sweep, amused by the irony. You are surrounded by filth, yet you are technically producing the ingredients of cleanliness. Maybe that's your secret skill, turning dirt into something useful. You carry another pan of ash outside. The mound has grown tall, a gray mountain recording your week. You pause at its edge, tipping the pan slowly, watching the flakes drift down. In the sunlight, they glitter faintly, like snow that has forgotten how to be pure. You stand there longer than usual, letting the wind tug at your hair, until a voice calls you back. Historians still argue whether apprentices found meaning in such endless repetition, or whether their spirits dulled under it. You wonder where you fall. The broom has dulled parts of you, yes, but it has also sharpened others. Your eye for detail, your tolerance for monotony, your ability to laugh when nothing is funny. Joke number 2. You mutter that if life is just sweeping the same floor again and again, then at least you're becoming an expert in circles. Maybe someday you'll open a school of sweeping, where students pay in bread crusts. Back inside, the steward surprises you by handing you a coin, just one, copper and dull, pressed into your palm with little ceremony. "Payment for the errands," he says. Your eyes widen. It is the first coin you've touched that belongs to you. You close your fingers around it, feeling its weight like treasure. It isn't much, barely enough for an apple at market, but it is yours. You tuck it deep into your pocket, beside the memory of the bruised apple you once hid. Quirky observation. You notice that small victories, an apple, a sliver of cheese, a coin, mean more than any banquet could. Banquets end. Coins and memories linger. The day drifts forward. You sweep, haul, chop, cough. But each task feels lighter, softened by the knowledge that the week is nearly done. The broom's scrape is still dull, but now it feels almost like punctuation at the end of a sentence you've been writing all week. Evening comes, the kitchen glowing low with embers. The scullery maid sits on her stool, humming again. The cook yawns, rubbing his temples. The steward closes his ledger with a snap. And you, broom in hand, take one last sweep across the hearth. The ashes gather, obedient as ever, forming their final little hill. You tip them into the pan, carry them outside, and empty them onto the mound. The breeze catches them, scattering them across the yard, carrying pieces of your week away into the night. Joke number 3. You whisper to yourself that if every grain of ash is a memory, then someday an archaeologist will dig here and say, "This boy must have swept the world." The stars prick the sky above, faint but steady. You breathe deep, lungs still aching, but grateful for air that isn't thick with smoke. The ash pile gleams faintly in the starlight, and you feel strangely proud of it, as though all your work, invisible indoors, has built this monument of soot. You step back inside, broom resting in your hand. The kitchen is quieter now, shadows stretching across the walls. You look around, letting your eyes linger on the oven, the pot, the table, the stool, the dog curled by the fire. These have been your companions, your adversaries, your world for 7 days. Historians still argue whether ordinary lives like yours matter in the grand sweep of history. You smile faintly, broom bristles trailing across stone. Whether they matter or not, you know this week was real. The cough, the sweat, the laughter, the crumbs, all of it is written into you, if not into books. The fire hisses low, settling into embers. You set the broom back in its corner, gently, almost respectfully. Tomorrow it will be waiting again, but tonight, for the first time all week, it feels like you have reached an end. The week closes not with celebration, not with feasts, but with quiet endurance. You survived the ash, the scoldings, the cough, the fleas, the endless sweeping. You are still here, and in a place where boys vanish as quickly as sparks, survival itself is victory. You climb the ladder to the loft, straw rustling beneath your weight. You lie back, blanket thin, cough lurking, but heart oddly light. You press the coin in your pocket, close your eyes, and let the darkness take you. The broom will wait, the ash will return, but for now, you rest. The final morning comes without ceremony. No trumpet, no blessing, just the same bell echoing through the courtyard, tugging you from straw to smoke once more. You climb down the ladder, joints stiff, lungs still rasping from a week's worth of soot. The kitchen looks the same as every other day, embers glowing in the hearth, scraps from last night's meal still clinging to pans, the broom leaning like a patient companion waiting for your hand. You sigh, pick it up, and begin again. The scrape of bristles feels almost comforting now. The rhythm has etched itself into you, as familiar as breathing, as steady as the cough that follows every breath. You sweep the hearthstones carefully, coaxing ash into neat lines, thinking about how many times you have done this in the last 7 days. Each sweep is a mark of time, a tally scratched across the floor. Fact: in many households, apprenticeships began with years of such drudgery before a boy could even touch the skilled tasks of his trade. Bakers swept before baking. Smiths hauled coal before hammering. Scribes sharpened quills before writing. Labor came first, skill later, if later ever arrived. You remind yourself of that, though the broom feels less like a step toward a future and more like the future itself. The cook grumbles about bread, his voice hoarse, his eyes ringed with sleepless circles. The steward mutters about accounts. The scullery maid scrapes pans. Nothing changes, yet you sense an ending anyway, as though the air itself is tired of repeating. You sweep slower, letting each stroke linger, as though savoring the monotony. Joke number 1. You mutter under your breath that if sweeping were an art, you'd be famous by now. Galleries filled with ashes arranged in graceful patterns. The thought makes you chuckle softly, though no one hears. Quirky tidbit: ashes sometimes found second lives as fertilizer, sprinkled on fields to nourish crops. You glance at your pile outside and imagine it growing into a forest, each tree a monument to your labor. You like the idea, turning soot into life, monotony into something green. Historians still argue whether apprentices like you saw themselves as part of something larger or simply endured one day at a time. You know endurance is real, but so is the quiet pride that comes with survival. Each day you did not collapse, each task you finished, each crumb you ate, all of it has built into this moment. You carry the last pan of ash outside. The pile has grown into a small hill, gray and solemn, like a grave for every spark that ever burned. You stand at its edge, tipping the pan slowly, watching the flakes drift down. They scatter in the breeze, catch the light, dissolve into air. For a moment, you feel lighter too, as though pieces of you are rising with them. Joke number 2. You whisper that if you ever vanish, they should check the ash pile. Maybe you've simply blended in. Back inside, the broom makes its final sweep of the week. The bristles whisper across the stones, gathering the last dust into silence. You lean on the handle, chest heavy, but there is no more to do. The oven glows low. The pots simmer faintly. The kitchen hums in its tired rhythm. You stand in the middle of it all, broom in hand, and let the quiet settle. The scullery maid passes, humming again, and this time you hum along. The steward glances up, frowns, but says nothing. Even the cook stays silent. The broom rests in your grip, and you realize that in its dull way, it has carried you through. Joke number 3. You decide that if history ever remembers you, it will be as the boy who swept. And honestly, there are worse legacies. The day drifts toward evening. Shadows stretch, embers fade, voices quiet. You set the broom in its corner, carefully, almost tenderly. It will wait for us or wait for you tomorrow. But tonight it can rest. You wipe your hands on your tunic, feel the grit under your nails, and breathe deep of the smoky air. You are weary, sore, soot-stained, but still here. That at least is enough. Now the week folds closed, like a page slowly turning at the end of a long story. The broom rests in its corner. The fire glows faintly, and you lie back on the straw, letting your tired body sink into stillness. The noise of the kitchen has faded to a hum, softer than breath, gentler than memory. You feel the weight of ash on your skin, yet it no longer presses. It drifts, it scatters, it dissolves. Your breathing slows, long and deep, chest rising with steady rhythm. The cough lingers faintly, but even that begins to ease, softened by the quiet. You close your eyes, and the images of the week drift past. Piles of soot, scraps of bread, whispers of gossip, flashes of laughter, tiny victories tucked inside the monotony. None of it was grand, none of it was noble, yet it was yours. You survived it, endured it, carried it. The air cools, brushing lightly across your face. The stars beyond the beams seem brighter tonight, shining steady and calm. You let them guide your thoughts outward, beyond the kitchen, beyond the ash, into a wide and gentle darkness. Your body loosens, muscles releasing their grip, hands finally free of the broom's weight. Each breath carries you deeper into quiet, deeper into ease. Now, let the images fade. Let the sounds dissolve. Let the week drift far away. You are safe here, resting, unburdened. The broom waits. The fire sleeps. The world softens into silence. Allow yourself to sink, slower, calmer, quieter, until only stillness remains. Sleep gathers around you like a blanket, warm and endless. You drift, you rest, you dream, and now you let go.